What's up, guys? Welcome to a very special episode of the Young Guns podcast. We have Cameron of Bruins Media back with us once again, and we're going to be talking about arguably the best team that we've ever seen in probably this era of hockey in the regular season, the Boston Bruins. We're going to be talking about, are they the favorites to win the Stanley Cup this year? They are breaking records like crazy this year. They're the fastest team to reach 100 points. They did it in 61 games. The team that held the original record were the Montreal Canadiens from 1976, 1977. They are the fastest team to 80 points this season. That was originally set by the Philadelphia Flyers and Montreal Canadiens in the past. They did it in 49 games. Boston did it in 47 games. And even though with injuries to Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno, we're probably going to miss the rest of the regular season, but they'll be back come playoff time. This is a team to be scared of. Probably the scariest team in the NHL. And we'd like to hear your thoughts, Cameron, on where do you think the Boston Bruins finish in the playoffs? Do they go all the way? Are they the favorites to win the Stanley Cup, or are you not taking that likely and you're just gonna go in there with no hopes? The regular season is not a representation of what happens in the playoffs, and whatever happens, happens. We've seen other teams, with all these high hopes. They were the President's Trophy. We know that whole curse, and they choke in the first or second round. And not only that, the Boston Bruins are currently on a 10-game winning streak. They've been on many winning streaks this year, and I feel like people are just like, we're used to it by now. So, what are your thoughts on the Boston Bruins in terms of a playoff run?
Obviously, as a fan, I'd love to see the Bees go all the way here, but I'm the type of person who I don't really get my hopes up. And so when I look at Boston, they have a great roster assembled, but once the playoffs start, it's a whole nother animal. You can't take any team lightly. And it's pretty much like a whole new season, I'd call it. If you make it in, you got a shot. So I obviously, I have high hopes, but at the same time, I'm not trying to be too optimistic here. And they have a great team, but again, we're gonna have to sit back and watch and see what happens.
Yeah, and just looking at the team as a whole in terms of their lines, this team is fantastic, and they're without Nick Foligno and Taylor Hall. I can't imagine how stacked they're going to be come playoff time. But they add Tyler Bertuzzi. He seems to be fitting in pretty well.
Yeah,
Paolo
love that guy.
Zacha gets an extension. He's been someone that's really found his groove with the Boston Bruins. It didn't work out with New Jersey. Jake DeBrusk, after all those problems and being connected to trade rumors for the longest time, he seems to be finally find a spot on the Boston Bruins, doing very well this year. They add Hathaway, and this team is just fantastic. David Pastrnak signs an extension. He's probably one of the best players this season. We're going to be in the conversation for MVP this year, but in terms of their defense, wow, did they do a fantastic job? And Orlov is killing it. He's a natural fit for the Boston Bruins, and
Yeah,
he's
he
been
is.
racking up a lot of points. So, in terms of the decor and in terms of their offense, where would you rank the Boston Bruins heading into the playoffs?
Defensively, they have the best defensive core in the NHL, hands down. When you have Matt Grzelcyk as your seventh defenseman, I think you're in a pretty good spot. Obviously, we're gonna have to monitor health, and we're seeing guys get rest down the stretch. We've seen a rotation of Carlo, Forbert, Clifton, and Grzelcyk throughout the last couple of games since Orlov's been traded. And I'm sure once the Bruins clinch the President's Trophy, we'll see guys like McAvoy and Lindholm get some nights off, and maybe some guys like Bergeron and Krejci who have been in the league for a while.
Yeah,
But yeah, defense definitely the best defensive core. Offense, probably one of the deepest cores in the National Hockey League. So I look at this team and I see no holes. And unbiasedly, I'm saying that I don't know, especially a healthy Boston Bruins team. I see no holes on this roster.
and alluding to the fact that this is the best defensive team in the league, they have the fewest goals allowed. They allow 2.08 goals. So they're first in the NHL for that. And in terms of their penalty kill, they have the best penalty kill in the league.
Yes.
They're at 86.6%. So first in the NHL in terms of penalty killing. But let's take a look at their goaltending. We all know already that Linus Allmark is probably, or I would say it's a guarantee at this point, that he's going to be winning the Vezina Trophy. But Jeremy Swayman being a solid backup to Allmark, and they have a great friendship. We see their relationship on and off the ice in terms of their celebrations after winning a game. And I do believe that having this 1A 1B a goaltending duo is working in their favor. But not only that, Allmark has clearly made it clear that he's the legitimate starting goaltender, even though they started the season with with the intentions of going 1A and 1B.
Yeah, I think also this might be a kind of a hot take from me, but I wouldn't be surprised if uh, if Montgomery goes splits them somewhat in the playoffs, maybe gives Olmark a night off because Swayman has been that good. He's top five in goals against average. I think he has like a 917 save percentage right now. So I mean, he's no slump. I know Olmark's been miles ahead, but I think the way they've been doing it is Olmark starts a game, Swayman starts a game, Olmark starts, Swayman starts, and it seems to be working. And if it isn't broke, don't fix it. So honestly, could we see the first tandem ever go into a playoffs, split the playoffs, and potentially take a Stanley Cup with a tandem? That would be something interesting to watch to see if Olmark gets the whole workload or is Swayman and Olmark gonna split things up.
Yeah, and in terms of the goalie categories, Allmark is leading every single one. Wins, no surprise there, 32. In terms of goals against average, 1.89. In terms of save percentage, 0.938. And another factor, going back to how good their defense is, Hampus Lindholm leading in plus and minus in the whole league, 41. Matt Grzelcyk, 35. Brandon Carlo, 32. Patrice Bergeron, arguably the best two-way centerman in the league, 31. David Pastrnak, 29. McAvoy, 26. Marchand, 26. And these are all in the top 15 in the entire league. I've named 5 to 6 Boston Bruin players right there. That's how good the Boston Bruins are this season. And in terms of stats, I mean, look how balanced this team is. I mean, obviously, Pasternak is leading the pack with 84 points, but you take a look at Marshall, Krejci, who missed a whole year last season, did not play in the NHL, comes back, 50-point season in 57 games, almost a point per game player this season. Patrice Bergeron, 48 points. Pavel Zacha, a great headline story for the Boston Bruins. He's a reclamation project at the start of the season, gets an extension, having a career year. Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, Jake DeBrus, Taylor Hall, Charlie Coyle, Nick Foligno, who they put on waivers at one point at the season, and he's doing well too as a third line, fourth line, player. Trent Frederick, Matt Grzelcyk, Connor Clifton. There's some players that don't even have 30 points on some great teams, and look at the Boston Bruins. They're absolutely killing it this season.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. The depth of this team. I'd argue the Bruins have their fifth line is better than some bottom six lines. And by I mean fifth line, when this team's healthy, those guys will be in the press box. So something to monitor there. It's absolutely insane the depth of this team. Even if we got guys like Hall and Foligno down right now, see guys like Jakub Lacko stepping up. Thomas Nosik's been great down the stretch. So it's really nice to have this depth and chemistry and just really strong depth in all positions.
And in terms of the ideal offensive lines that we could potentially see heading into the playoffs, we do know that Hall and Foligno should be back. But who comes out of the lineups? What are your ideal lines heading into the playoffs, essentially?
This is so hard, and I'm glad I don't get paid to make the decisions. But if I, on paper, I would say Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, and Jake DeBrusk. That's pretty constant, as well as Zacha, Krejci, and Pasternak. So this is when things get interesting. I think you'll see Taylor Hall slide onto the third line left wing, centered by Charlie Coyle and Tyler Bertuzzi on his right. So that's going to knock Trent Frederick down. So they're either going to go Frederick at center, or if they want Nosek, who's been killing a lot of penalties, they might play Nosek over Frederick, which would leave Nick Foligno in over AJ Greer and Garnet Hathaway, a staple on the fourth line right wing. So it's going to depend. Maybe Frederick goes to the fourth line center, which is going to be hard to take him out of the lineup, or Thomas Nosek. and a guy like AJ Greer's been playing fine too. So ideally, I think I'd say Frederick centering Hathaway and Nick Foligno as the fourth line heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I would put Nick Foligno over some of these guys in terms of a roster spot essentially because he provides experience. He's consistent. He's been having a good season this year,
Yeah,
and he continuously wants to prove that he still has it. Because I know a lot of people are saying that injuries ruined him. He's not the same player anymore, but he's proving otherwise this season. So in terms of a first round matchup, we know that there's a race for the two final wildcard spots between the Islanders, Penguins, Sabres, Senators, Florida, and potentially even maybe the Capitals. So ideally, I don't think the Boston Bruins would like to face the Islanders because the Islanders have caused the Boston Bruins problems in the playoffs in the past, even though Barry Trotz is no longer their coach anymore. But if I'm a Boston Bruins fan, who do you want to face?
honestly, I want to face the Buffalo Sabres of the New York Islanders. The one team I do not want to face is the Ottawa Senators. I think they're heating up at the right time. I know they lost to Chicago last night, but adding a guy like Chikrin and they're starting to get healthy. They're a really young team that can explode at any second offensively. And that I probably wouldn't want to play Pittsburgh just because, you can never count a guy like Crosby out. So I don't know if that's like an ideal first round matchup. But yeah, I'd probably want to play the New York Islanders or the Buffalo Sabres just because the Sabres are a little inexperienced. The Bruins do have their number. And while the Islanders did beat the Bruins, I think that would be a really good physical series, and I think Boston could take them.
Yeah, and in terms of the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're kind of in the same spot as the Boston Bruins. They're an aging team with an aging core essentially, and they really dipped in terms of the quality of a
Yeah,
hockey team over the course of the season. And you look at teams like Ottawa and Buffalo, they're going to be teams on the rise for the next couple of years. So this may be the last opportunity for the Penguins to potentially go on a run here. And, I think they're going to, give it their all against the Boston Bruins, whoever they face, if they do make the playoffs. Ottawa, I do agree, very young team. You never know what to expect from them. They're one of the best teams in 2023. They've been going on a little bit of a run here, trying to make a last minute push for a playoff spot. The Islanders, you never know what to expect from them. But Matty Barzell is injured until playoff time, if they're even in the playoffs. So we see what happens there. Buffalo Sabres, I would just love to see Buffalo versus Boston. That would be a fantastic matchup. That would be my ideal matchup.
yeah, me
But
too.
at the end of the day, I do believe that Boston Bruins are the favorites. They are the scariest team. Any team that we mentioned that faces the Boston Bruins in the first round, they're going to be the underdogs. It doesn't matter if you're the Islanders, Senators. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past either. The Boston Bruins are the first team to 100 points a season, the fastest team to 100 points, the fastest team to 80 points. They're the best defensive team. They're going to be getting reinforcements uh, at the start of the playoffs, but not any reinforcements, but Hall and Felino in particular. And this is already a stacked team.
Yeah,
So I have to, put all my chips in and say that the Boston Bruins are the favorites to win the Stanley Cup. I do believe that they will win the Stanley Cup. They're on a mission here. This is their last dance. We don't
yeah.
know what's going to happen with Bergeron and Krejci past this season. Are they going to want to come back and say, you know what? We have the team. Let's go all in. The Boston Bruins went all in at the trade deadline. They gave up a lot of assets. I don't know, how to feel after the season. I feel like it's tunnel vision right now. All they're focusing is the 2022-2023 Stanley Cup being handed to Patrice Bergeron. And if they do win the Stanley Cup, 100% Bergeron and Krejci are playing their last game for the Bruins and they're retiring on top.
It's going to be interesting. I hope they go all the way because this season would just be that much more disappointing if you have a great regular season, but a first or second round exit just wouldn't sit well.
Yeah, and it would be awesome to potentially face Toronto in the second round if Toronto takes out Tampa, which is most
They're
likely going to be a playoff series for round one.
Yep, Toronto's getting by the first round here this year, guys. You heard it here first. I'm a Bruins fan. I would love a Boston Toronto second round, and then like a Boston Rangers third round, or Bruins Hurricanes, Bruins Devils.
Yeah,
So
that would be fantastic, but it's not gonna be easy for Boston. Clearly,
no,
there's competition with teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, New Jersey Devils, New York Rangers. They're teams that's, that really, stocked up at the deadline as well. Even though Boston didn't have to do anything, they said, "You know what? Other teams are getting better. We're not gonna take these teams lightly. We're gonna scare these teams even more by getting Hathaway, Bertuzzi, and Orlov, 3 players that I mentioned in our trade breakdown videos that are the embodiment of what the big bad Bruins stand for. And I'm really happy that they got 3 guys because they're ideal fits, in my opinion.
oh, they're Tyler Bertuzzi is honestly the perfect Bruin. I would love for him to re-sign in the offseason. I hope he's not just a rental. And then Orlov has fit in just perfectly with Charlie McAvoy. Perfectly.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. But Cameron, we just would like to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast here today. We're wishing the Boston Bruins luck heading into the playoffs. We
Sure.
hope that the Boston Bruins, make history. They've been making history and rewriting the record book throughout this whole 2022-2023 campaign. And guys, make sure to write in the comment section below who will the Boston Bruins most likely face in the first round? Who you rooting for the Bruins to face? What are your predictions for the Boston Bruins heading into the 2022 and 2023 playoffs? And are they the scariest team in the NHL and the favorites in the NHL to win the Stanley Cup this year? Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Young Guns podcast.